So my understanding of GShade is that it has been like the one add-on that has been held up above all other add-ons as the kind of add-on that Square Enix should not enforce their anti-add-on stance on. That this is the add-on of all add-ons that can be trusted. It doesn't give any play advantage. It's managed by a good portion of the community that just want to make people happy. That's my understanding. I have tried using Reshade with WoW, which is basically the same tool. And I ended up just like, it's still installed on my computer. So if I go to Reshade, it pops up, but like I don't use it. Now when I boot up WoW, like all the I just never uninstalled it. So I assume that's the same thing. I don't mind the way 14 looks. So let's give it a shot.
This means that the GShade installer is in fact making the request, but apparently that's not enough for GShade, as it's now blatantly malicious code restarts your computer when run in this way. Just as a note, if you update GShade and use it as intended, there's no restarting or anything. This behavior only occurs when being run in a certain way in order to download presets by a different program in accordance with GShade's download agreement. The guy admitted that he had implemented this specifically because of Not Knight's installer software, and also claimed that if he did anything worse, it would have been Not Knight's fault for distributing it to people and triggering it.
Wait, what? So it's okay because... What?
People are getting annoyed about all of the forced updates that GShade was putting out constantly. Like, I had seen people memeing on this, and if you had been using it, you're probably annoyed as well. GShade has pushed another pointless, obnoxious, patronizing update that breaks people's presets and that treats them like idiots, even though it broke their shit. Great update and treatment of people using it. Yeah, so basically, please use the GShade fact for information on how to properly use it. It's like there's so many all the time. On today, this day of yet another forced GShade update. Oh, so this was actually something people knew about a while ago. I remind everyone that the developers absolutely do not care that their pseudo malware practices inconvenience you. This was from January 28th, so people already knew that there was some crap like this going on. Now,
I mean, January 28th wasn't that long ago. Like, I don't know when she published this, but like, it was not January all that long ago. I'm learning about all this on February 7th. So, that's fairly recent. So do we know when they started doing all this crap? It seems like what they don't want is that you get a set of presets you like, and then another piece of software comes along, either identical in that it just literally pulls from their GitHub repository and like just kind of makes a branch of its own, or does similar enough things that it allows their presets to come in compatibly. And so they don't want to live in a world where you can take their presets out of their ecosystem to somebody that's doing a better job, right? Like if you could just download your Android phone onto an iPhone and it had all your contacts and it looked for all the same applications and the same games and it transferred your game files and it brought over all your pictures. Like, it is in Android's best interest that doesn't exist, and vice versa, because they want there to be a little bit of friction so that once you're in their ecosystem, they stay there. So it sounds like that's what they want. And that rather than, and then somebody did build that tool, and so now they're gonna like shut your computer off if you use it.
now it's blown up. Today it has blown up. Every time I open 14, I keep wondering if I have to download yet another fucking GShade update because I had to do that for the past 2 weeks.
So what gives them this level of confidence? Which came first, GShade or Reshade? Like, if GShade is a split off of Reshade, this is literally somebody copying somebody else and then claiming they're the original. Chat says Reshade came first. So just to be clear, I read a book I really liked, but I thought it should have a different ending. And so I re-released the book and I changed the final chapter. And now somebody wants to re-release my book, but, you know, one where not all the pages are sticky, because for some reason mine always has sticky pages and it's gross. And I'm like, whoa, 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 if you want my final chapter, you gotta deal with my sticky pages. And if you don't, I will light the entire book on fire. Am I caught up?
Anti-tampering code is not unusual in proprietary software. It is impossible to trigger that code by running the GShade installer as a normal end user in any fashion. You must call the individual functions of the app from an external third-party program designed to utilize its functions in a clandestine fashion. This was meant to be a lesson to you specifically about taking this approach to the problem.
Okay.
Anything could have been.
Just to be clear, let's read this. I think Zeppela's doing a great job of reading the actual words that were written. Let's come at this from another angle. Hello. If you actually built your own freaking thing from the ground up, it is not uncommon for you to feel ownership over that thing. And as long as everybody is using your unique idea, that definitely is not a fork off of somebody else's idea, in the correct way, because it is not buggy or flawed in any way, it should be fine. However, there are companies out there, like companies that make games or something like that, that really don't like when somebody uses a third-party program to secretly modify their experience. You know, like a shader changing the visual experiences on a game. Yeah, so we're anti-third-party programs. Here at Third Party Program Incorporated, we're really anti-third-party programs. So what I've done is I hate that people are using my free software to modify somebody else's game in a way they prefer, in a way that I don't, that modifies it. I hate people that modify games here at modifygames.org. And I would really like to teach this one person who fixed a flaw in my open source third-party shenanigans, which I just took from somebody else's. And so I am going to maliciously, instead of fixing the problem, go in and build something. I could have made the building functional. The first floor toilet always leaked. And so you fix something so that when you pee in the toilet, it doesn't shoot crap all over you anymore. And so what I've done is I've gone in and I've gently sawed all the studs so that if you start messing with the toilet, the whole building will fall on you. I could have just fixed the toilet, but I'd rather the whole thing fall on you. I hope it doesn't fall on anybody innocent. As far as I can tell, it should only fall on you, the plumber fixing the toilet for everybody. So I chose a restart. I chose this particular malicious, stupid function because I wanted you to be wildly inconvenienced if you decided to not be wildly inconvenienced by my updates. So what I wanted is the optimal experience to be the one where you were inconvenienced and you have a bunch of visual presets to modify a game with third-party software. And if you choose not to modify it in the ways that I approve, I would like you to be inconvenienced anyway. And so what the cohesive experience is that no matter what, here at gshade.org, we want you to be inconvenienced all of the time. Slightly more noticeable? Do you know what happens if somebody's computer just restarts? It can, like, I have all this other stuff up. Consider it similar to an anti-cheat software. You run a piece of software that is against terms of service. And people say, oh, but they don't even enforce on GShade. One time a community manager in 2013 said it was okay. If you wanted to run a true anti-cheat software, your new GShade update would uninstall GShade.
I chose a restart, which is, by the way, that's what it does. That's what the malware does. It forces your computer to restart if it detects you doing something that it doesn't want you doing. Because I wanted something that was still completely harmless, but slightly more noticeable than a quick process kill. Consider it similar to what anti-cheat software does when something particularly bad turns up. This is the first instance of the guy just freely admitting that, yes, he did put this malware in the code, and yes, it was to spite somebody. A specific tried person. To make a version that wasn't constantly updating, even though, yeah, it's gonna affect, it's gonna be on everybody's computer that downloads GShade, and yeah, they wanted it to be, you know, harmless. And then the guy, Not Night, responded, "I hate to tell you this, but including malware in your code and saying I was the one triggering it is not the big brain play you think it is." So probably one of the funniest things about this to me, and I've seen this in a couple other things that the guy has said.
By the way, WoW's Warden or any of these other anti-cheat software, none of them assume that shutting down your hardware is harmless. I have never, ever, ever, ever heard. Back when, freaking the Maxis stuff, the SimCity had all that, like, digital rights management stuff, and they were gonna, like, you could only install it 6 times or whatever, and then you had to buy a new copy of the game and all that. Not a single one of those unbelievably oppressive systems trying to avoid theft or over-modification, not a single one does anything besides limit your access to that piece of software. None of them would think that I didn't want to just lock you out of it with the quick process kill. I wanted something completely harmless, like causing your entire hardware to shut off. What the hell is wrong with you?
Now, some people say that it does look like they removed it, but I mean, at this point, it doesn't matter. At this point, it really doesn't matter. You cannot use something from people that are willing to put this shit in the install. I shouldn't have to explain that to you. I think that's common sense.
Keep in mind that this guy is in charge of the glory child, the perfect house on the hill. Yoshi P! Naoki Yoshida, please! Please let us use just some add-ons in your game. Oh, Square Enix, please, please, please understand that add-ons like GShade are all good and they never hurt your users in any way, and they don't make your game or your community look like jerks and idiots and malicious morons. Please, please, please. Just trust us. You can trust us. You get really embarrassed and you cry when something makes your game or your community hurt or look bad. And you can trust these people who are not employees. They don't run anything by your quality assurance team to modify your game files. You can trust us. Just look at GShade. Just look at GShade.
TLDR, an anti-tampering function was added to GShade's installer to trigger restarts in the event that a third-party external software or library utilized the GShade installer's functions without actually running it in a clandestine fashion. Anti-tampering code is not a...
I cut a guy's lock, I stole his bike, and I went home and I put a lock on it, because, man, I don't want somebody stealing my bike.
Unusual and proprietary software. This is basically reiterating the same thing that he just said. If I uninstall GShade, is my computer at risk? No. Make sure, I would just recommend that you completely uninstall it. When I uninstalled GShade this morning, I had to go into the file folder and I had to, first I had to uninstall it. Then I had to restart my computer. Then I had to turn it on again. And even though I had already uninstalled it through the GShade program, I had to, and I had uninstalled and it said uninstall successful. I restart, I open Final Fantasy again, and it still popped up. And so then I exit, and then I had to delete a bunch of files. And that anything GShade related, deleted all of that shit. I found this Reddit post. It's like, okay, but how do I remove GShade completely? And someone suggested that you need to delete, there was like a specific file that I need to, this. I had to go to the game folder and delete these files. And then I restarted again, and then it was clean. Then it was gone. But yeah, I had to, it was a little bit harder than I felt it needed to be. I am shocked. I really didn't expect this to be coming from GShade people. I mean, usually when we talk about third-party tools and mods and add-ons and stuff, I feel like almost always GShade was put in this different category of like, oh, but they're fine. It's just GShade. It's just GShade. There's never been any problems with GShade. We trust GShade. It's fine. It's fine. This is what Yoshi P warned us about. Whoa. He said the real reason you can't use add-ons is because these people could just put anything in there anytime they wanted. Oh my god, wait. Is there more self-reporting that's happened? Yes. A computer restart is not malicious. That's an odd threshold for malware. What?
I stole your bike. It's not like I stole your car. Like, it's a used bike. Nobody even buys used bikes. It's just a bike. Let it go. I just made the software do something without permission that was substantially beyond the bounds of the software itself. I just, you know, am gonna mess with your hardware and any other software you're running. What? You could mess up all kinds of stuff by force restarting, especially if they don't know that's what's doing it and they let it restart over and over and over. Like, you can seriously mess up somebody's stuff.
Hello everyone. We want to address the recent controversy surrounding the currently popular Reshade tool, GShade. Anything outside of the vanilla FFXIV launcher, an executable file, could potentially put you and your PC at risk if the tool developers choose to use the elevated access you grant them through their programs. If left unattended, malicious actions taken by these unverified add-ons and tools like GShade can cause potentially irreparable damage to your machine. Unfortunately, after verifying the changes the developer of GShade has made to their program will no longer endorse this tool as a community resource, and its links have been removed from our server. You're allowed to discuss the tool as a whole, but links to the Discord server or its installer will be removed, and you will be warned, please do not share links to the tool or its Discord server. So, it's over for GShade.
If only there was another piece of software that was capable of doing everything GShade could do, that was older than GShade and could be the basis of GShade. If only there was a way that we could, again, shade our Final Fantasy XIV experience. A new second time, a reshade, as it were.
GShade, if they added a payload to GShade that will scan your system for specific files and then force restart your PC if it detects something that it doesn't like. If it finds a target program that it doesn't like, it forces a restart. That is malicious. That is incredibly dangerous. That is not permissions that you want to freely give to a third-party tool at all. It's incredibly reckless and stupid that they would put that. And it's like, you know, there are lines that devs cannot cross. Okay, there's some things you just cannot allow, and if they cross that line, you cannot trust them anymore. Okay, that's what it comes down to. Could they have put something worse in there? Yeah, obviously. Be glad that they didn't, but the fact is that they're willing to do that, so you cannot use this. You cannot trust them. You cannot use GShade. So yeah, delete it, uninstall it, use Reshade instead. It is fine. Okay, so is this the apology? Yes. Hi, everyone. On the recent concerns involving GShade, I would like to personally apologize for the undue stress I may have caused both the community and our moderators in the process of attempting to improperly address an ongoing situation. This is not an apology. This is not, I'm sorry I put malware in GShade. This is, well, actually, what I was trying to do was stop people from doing shit I didn't want them to do on their computer. And I wanted to send a message. And I'm sorry if I stressed you out by it, but... This is not an apology. An anti-tampering function was added.
Honestly, in the modern day and age, don't apologize. Just remove it. Like, the apology has made this worse. They were better off not apologizing. They were better off just removing it and saying it's been removed. Single sentence. Because clearly you're not capable of communicating in a way that's not filled with frustration and being a dick, because you were already doing that. So unless you're really ready to like change, like, this was just a very much like, I'm the smartest person in the room and I'm sorry you're not as smart as me. You would be better off not saying anything if that's the only apology you can offer.
Added to GShade's installer to trigger restarts in the event that a third-party external software or library utilized the GShade installer's functions without actually running it. It was not possible to trigger this function by running the GShade installer normally. This function has been removed from the GShade installer and will never be re-implemented again. Okay. Moving forward, I will also be looking into easing up the update requirements associated with GShade. Why couldn't you just do that instead in the first place? Why couldn't you fix the problem that everybody was complaining about instead of spitefully putting malware in GShade that will make no one want to use?
Yeah, there's no way, like, they spent time doing all this.
It doesn't even say, like, I realize that this is dangerous, what I've done. I realize that abusing our trust with the community, it has damaged our credibility, probably forever. I cannot believe that I acted in such haste and without consulting community members and our people who enjoy our tool, and I'm so sorry for betraying your...
Yeah, I mean, if you're capable of like a real apology, but if you were able to see that level of harm, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. So, like, the fact that you weren't able to see that level of harm, the best thing you can do is just, like... Because now what she's talking is she's talking with a whole bunch of reason. And this was done intentionally spitefully. Intentionally spitefully. This was not... I had issues with it, and it's accidentally shutting down people's computer. Like, this was put in maliciously. The goal was to make somebody's day a lot worse in a noticeable and meaningful way. I could have just killed the application, but I thought it was way better to go way bigger.
Trust, and I was just emotional and upset, and I'm gonna let other people take control of the project now. No! It wasn't any of that shit. It was just like, it really wasn't that bad what I did, and there was a really good reason why I did it, and you guys are just overreacting. But since everyone's so mad about it, well, I won't do that one next time. Get rid of it. Clean your system of GShade and go back to Reshade. This is my advice to you.
I appreciate her catching me up on this, because I was out for the week, and I'm not a GShade user, and this has been a mess. But as somebody that has watched the add-on debate happen over and over and over and over and over and over, it is the one add-on that has always been thrown in my face is like, well, when you say they don't want add-ons, they don't mean GShade. Pretty sure they do.
Reminder, FFXIV actually has official shaders through NVIDIA that you can use. So this is approved by Square Enix. It is completely allowed, and it's a way to make your game look prettier if you happen to use have access to the NVIDIA.
It's entirely trust-based. You have to give, because these are things that modify other software, you have to give them these permissions. So you have to trust any add-ons that you put in things so much. And the moment that trust is gone, even if it's just implied, I don't know how you'd ever give it back. Like, if you needed this software for work or something, like if the game wouldn't work without an add-on or something, then you'd have to, but like, it's one of my issues with like DRMs or like the bring your own device stuff or whatever, when like I've had various things, I've worked for companies that wanted me to put software on my phone, and when I went through and looked at what permissions that software was granted and what I was okaying, and they were allowed to like look at my photos and read my text messages and see my email and like see anything I Google. And so if I Google like another company because I want to apply there or whatever, or like just anything, I don't want them to have that level of access. And so I've told them no, and they need to provide me with a secondary device. I'm not going to use it. And like I made a whole stink when I was at a previous company, and people were like, why? Is there something on your computer you want to hide? I just think it's weird that my boss should be able to like metaphorically dig through my dresser. Like, it doesn't matter that my pictures are just like my dog and like what I had for dinner. Like, it's none of their freaking business. So like add-ons like this are way more optional. So why would I ever trust them again? So this was all done because Not Night created a way that you could choose when to update GShade, right? That's what Not Night did. Because I think there's some people talking about they were trying to make scripts so that you could like export your presets into another shader. But just to make sure I understand what Not Night did, the one that's in her chat, all Not Night did was just make it to where it just didn't auto update. Like, have you ever had like Windows auto update and it just pops up all the day and you're like trying to work and it's like, it's gonna restart the computer in 60 seconds, and you're like, somebody just made a button that'll just stop that. You can still update whenever you want. It's not modifying the software like that is your experience. It's just not forcing you to update, so that if you don't want the computer to restart at 3 a.m. because maybe you're still working at 3 a.m., it won't. That's it. And so all they did was make it not auto update, which was a modification to improve the experience of GShade, which is already a modified experience to improve the experience of Reshade, which is already a third-party way to modify the experience of Final Fantasy XIV.
So what now? I'm getting bored of this. It was funny though. If I were you, still trying to use GShade on Reshade, I'd give the script a look. Okay, if you're reading this, you really need to pick better things to do with your time than fight 16-year-olds on the internet.
Turns out, GShade's now malware that will literally force restart your computer because the devs don't want you using a competitor. And they're showing it happen. I don't think there's a need to panic about the forced restarts because it's been countered and fixed. It's just baffling that they're willing to go that far. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's charge on. This is the dev of GShade admitting turning into malware, saying it could have easily been coded to do anything you wanted, but it just chose to restart. And this is what she went over. This is what she liked. I chose something completely harmless. Those who are uninstalling GShade and moving back to Reshade do not just uninstall GShade. Here are the complete directions. Oh, step 0. Do not uninstall GShade yet, because that's going to remove your shaders. You don't want to do that. It doesn't even remove GShade's executable, so don't do that. Step 1. Identify your game folder and open it in Windows Explorer. They're going to show how to do this. Step 2. Delete the things that it doesn't know how to delete. Okay, I've had to do this for mods for things like Guild Wars. And it gives you some warnings. First, right? So we've got our step 3. We're getting rid of this. Step 4, install the original Reshade. Step 5, replace the contents of the Reshade shaders with your GShade shaders. The exact same thing that the guy got mad about in the first place. But now you can just bypass them entirely. Step 6, go ahead and grab all your presets. Then you can start to get rid of it. You do not need GShade for GShade presets. So the whole idea was that they didn't want to get bypassed, and here is how to bypass it. Super cool. And in conclusion, the GShade stuff has a new development. It's done. GitHub is gone following a GitHub investigation, which means that all current unmodified installs of GShade are now bricked.